Hi, I'm Matt. I'm CTO at Cohesys, and we've had some really interesting ways from Ben about getting in the flow state and Jessica about processes for unlocking our creativity. You know, as the CTO, so often we've got some amazing creative idea that goes into a whole bunch of stuff driven um, by Ben's UX team that we have to go and build in complicated real-world platforms with constraints and third-party requirements and NFRs and scale considerations. And it's really, really important for all of us in agile teams to think of ways of getting out of the weeds and outside of the problem and start thinking about solutions. And one of the ways that I really like is thinking about outside in and inside out thinking. It really does apply to Agile, and I'll give you a really, really quick potted history of Agile and how it's developed in my career. Before I started, right in the early days of my career, software projects were a nightmare. The biggest book on my reading list at uni was The Death March. Projects were typically years or decades long, and everybody who worked on them needed a 6-month sabbatical to recover. And then this book came out in 2000 called Hackers and Painters, and it really reimagined software development from a really complicated engineering process into actually creative people coming up with ideas and creating them in code in the same way that an artist would in clay or stone or paint. And kind of gods of software at the time all were reading this book, and they went off to this place in Utah and they came up with this thing called the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, not the Agile Manifesto, but there you go, if you're going to be really, really nerdy about it. And that said 4 things, and it's interesting to think about the things that it says it isn't. It is not process, it's people. It's not documentation, it's building stuff. Don't worry about the contracts, get procurement out the door. It's actually about collaborating with customers, and who needs a plan? It's about being nimble. And the Agile consultancies all arrived and came up with this stuff. And these are, this is process, documentation, contracts, checkpoints, how we're going to scale it with the scaled Agile framework. And if we follow all of the steps, we have all of these ceremonies, and we produce all these things, we're doing Agile. And it led to the point in 2014, one of those guys who was around the table in Utah said, Agile's dead. It's all over. And one of the reasons he said this is because back in 2004, actually creating things in a small team was quite simple. We had a database, and you maybe had some reporting off the back of it, and you had a website on the front end, and 5 people could get together and collaborate on it and launch something, and people thought it was amazing. And now actually we're all doing microservices, and we've got CRM systems, and we're integrating with some crazy back office system. And actually there's probably some scary box that someone built in 1995 that everyone's terrified to touch. And if you go near it, the world might come to an end. And we haven't got neat little arrows joining all of our systems together. Actually, there's an incredible spider's web of connectivity between all of this stuff. And it's really, really difficult to tackle these kinds of problems. And even the smartest brains, the great gods of software engineering, genuinely don't know what to do. But don't worry, Agile consultancies are there to help you. They can do this kind of inside-out development. If we go and change all of this technology that we've got, if only you buy all of these services from us and this big stack of tools, and we'll go into a 2-year digital transformation. At the end of the 2-year program, you'll emerge as a butterfly, and you'll be able to do all of those bright ideas you wanted, and it will be absolute nirvana. And I genuinely don't think that works. I think that one of the things they're missing is actually in this kind of chaotic mess, this is the collective knowledge of the organization built over decades. Is that there's value in this stuff. This is the output of hundreds of thousands of meetings, of man hours, of people discussing stuff, of working out genuine problems, genuine customer solutions, and creating them in their code, in their platforms. And actually, this is what drives a business, and you can't just throw it away. The cost to go and rewrite it all would be absolutely astronomical. So to crack these problems where you're trying to do something new but you're encumbered by all this stuff, I think one of the really, really powerful techniques we can use is stop thinking about our problems, stop thinking about all these systems, but actually think about the value we're delivering to our customers. Talk a little bit about inside out versus outside in. Inside out is a divergent process. It's the result of a process shaped by feedback and available resources. It's like planting a seed and you don't know whether it's going to become a great big oak tree, or you could form it into a bush, or you could bonsai it. Agile processes, as we know them, as all those diagrams, have actually encouraged outside-in thinking to dominate. Lots of the ceremonies that we have around Scrum are about thinking about where we are, looking at grooming backlogs, really focusing on our existing state and making small changes. It encourages a focus on the needs of the business and often on the needs of the systems. We spend a lot of time thinking about these constraints that we've got. But it is a really, really useful tool. It's particularly useful where the strengths and the capabilities of your business are what you need to succeed with your customers. Inside-out thinking is convergent. It actually starts with a big idea. You're not just, hey, we're just going to run a process and we see what we get. You've actually got an idea of where you want to get to, and you're imposing that on an unstructured medium. Your unstructured medium could be a piece of clay, and I want to turn this clay into something. It could be a canvas, or it could be a whole bunch of code. And actually, Agile processes encourage inside out, but the foundations of Agile and hackers and makers was really about people creating an idea and using that, using Agile to get there. It encourages you to focus on what your customers need, not the challenges of the business. And it's particularly useful where actually you think that your business is going to succeed because of the value that you create your customers and those experiences. And I actually think that is unless you've got some incredible piece of IP, you've got some database technology that's going to change the world and allow you to do something really different, that's usually the number one priority. So how does this apply in the real world? I mean, this is, we do all kinds of projects, and almost all projects these days, you've got to log in somehow, so we've got some view of the customer. We can start with just the front end. We're starting with the outside. It has no inside at all. Actually, anything that you put in those boxes, you press enter and you're in. We can then set a hard-coded password. So our next iteration might just be admin, admin, and everyone can put admin, admin in, and you're in. We might add some features, so we're slowly iterating it further and further in. We're starting to check against the database. We've got a password policy because actually it's important that we don't let people use admin admin because that's bad for them. They're going to get hacked. People have forgotten their passwords. Okay, we've got another new feature. And then your business says they want email reminders. Naturally, wouldn't it be exciting if we sign in with social? Did you read that article about how Google haven't been hacked all year because they've implemented YubiKey? Let's have YubiKey in. And actually, now we've got the best login in the business. Let's go and integrate this. So this is the single source of accounts across the enterprise. At that point, you're back to spending 2 years on an inside-out change. And actually, the value in this is probably only spending weeks. So, but starting from the outside makes it much, much easier to find where that minimum viable product is, rather than starting with a big problem. How are we going to link this identity across the enterprise? Let's go and spend two years on it, and then finally we'll be able to do a logged-in experience. However, eventually you are definitely going to come against a big black box that no one wants to touch, and you're going to have to tackle it. So how can you eat a monolith? And I think this is really when you do have to go inside out. All of these systems written, whatever they're written in, they basically end up being a database and some code and some sort of presentation layer. Take all that stuff, find a way to get it working on your laptop. There's usually a way. Speak to your customers and find a change that you can make, and it's going to be really, really tiny. Put some tests around that change, and then go and take that really, really small change and deploy it all the way from your laptop into a staging environment, into prod, and it's going to be really, really underwhelming. But you've started to develop a process of getting changes from customers into the real world, and that's actually changing your organization from the inside out. Then you can have an ambitions change. You can make some change improvements, so you haven't got 58 manual steps to get it up into production. You've started to automate it. You can start making those changes reversible if you break things. You can start rolling out changes to a small percentage of customers. And all the most complex systems in the world can start to be involved evolved like this. And you want to get to the point where you're able to make changes every single day. It will actually still take you months and years to move from the current state to the new state, but you're not going to, you will have changed from the outside in throughout that process. And by the time you get to the end, you're not just going to be exactly the same team, the same processes with a brand new big grey box sold by Oracle or Salesforce or somebody else. So I think that both outside in and inside out thinking are incredibly valuable, and it's a really interesting way of looking at problems to understand where you can apply them.